DZBS Baguio. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Many Filipinos lose their lives every day to chronic diseases like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, as well as cancer. In fact, the World Health Organization reported that they take almost 300,000 lives every year. But experts claim that eating well is one of the top things that you can do to manage these diseases as well as its symptoms. So what should your diet really consist of? How much fruit and vegetables should you take every day? On the program today, we'll talk about how Filipinos living with chronic diseases can eat better and enjoy it as well. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Medtalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. A big reason many of us are so vulnerable to chronic diseases is an unhealthy diet. According to the WHO, over 90% of Filipinos don't reach the recommended amount of fruit and vegetables per day. On top of that, many Filipinos settle for food higher in calories and lower in nutritional value. With us is Ms. Bea Mariola Recuerdo. She's an accredited nutritionist of the Singapore Nutrition and Dietetics Association. We're also joined by Dr. Caroline Narvacan Montano. She's an endocrinologist and the president of the Philippine Society of Endocrinology, Diabetes, and Metabolism. Now, chronic diseases are conditions that last for a long time, years even. The solution that is permanent is often challenging, but a healthy diet can go a long way in managing these chronic diseases. And among these are diabetes. According to the Department of Health, 1 in 14 Filipino adults are living with diabetes. Dr. Carol, what exactly is the problem with those with diabetics? What is it about their bodies wherein their diet has to be tailor-fit for their condition?
Usually there are two types. We have the type 1 and the type 2. Usually the type 1 diabetes are those diabetic patients who their pancreatic beta cells have been destroyed by immune reaction. It may not be related to the food intake of the patient. However, the type 2 diabetic patients would be those patients who develop hyperglycemia because of the insulin resistance, increase in weight, and having a sedentary lifestyle, causing too much fat that would then promote insulin resistance to the already impaired pancreatic beta cell.
When we talk about glucose intake, especially for those who are diagnosed with diabetes, Bea, what are some of the foods that can trigger this? What are the more common foods here in the Philippines? Kumbaga, bawal sa mga diagnosed with diabetes.
Food products that has simple sugar in it. Usually, makikita ito sa mga beverages like soft drinks, mga flavored juices, even desserts, pastries. If we're not careful sa mga nutrition facts label, they also contain simple sugars like honey, maple syrup, agave, molasses. So those are some of the simple sugars that are easily found in food products that Filipinos don't notice.
A lot of fruits and vegetables, fruits for that matter, are generally considered healthy, but there are fruits with a high glycemic index. Could you talk about that a little bit?
There are fruits that are high in glycemic index. Kaya for this one, we advise that the fruit intake would be 1 to 2 servings per day. And also that when it comes to the type of fruit, of course, it would be best if the glycemic index is lower. So you could opt for, let's say, apple or banana. You can also opt for other fruits like melon and watermelon.
Another chronic disease that's increasingly common here in the Philippines is hypertension or high blood pressure. A 2021 nationwide survey showed that around 37% of Filipinos are hypertensive. And when left untreated, the disease can lead to heart disease. Dr. Carol, pag-usapan naman natin ang hypertension. Anong nangyayari sa katawan kapag ang isang tao ay tinatawag na high blood?
If you already have a BP of more than 130 over more than 90, you're already considered hypertensive. Now, the reason for this may be that you're having some problems in terms of the metabolism of salt, probably salt in your body. And this may be brought about by too much intake of salt or saturated fat or even trans fat.
So diet also plays a big factor here, katulad din sinabi ni Dr. Carol. Ngayon, Bea, pagdating naman sa pagkain, maraming minention si Dr. Carol. What are some of the food that people with hypertension, ano yung mga dapat iwasan nila?
Oily food, of course, yung mga deep fried, and also it includes fast food and mga processed foods. Unfortunately, they are very high in saturated fat and trans fat. Yun yung mga dapat iwasan.
Now, as you cut back on foods high in sodium, it may take a little time for your palate to adjust. So be patient with the diet and you'll see effective results. When we return, we'll discuss other common chronic diseases and the best diets to manage them. We're your partner in healthcare, so keep it here on Medtalk Health Talk. Today, we're talking about the best diets to protect against some of the most common diseases. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk. Earlier, we discussed the prevalence of diabetes and high blood pressure here in the country. These two conditions can lead to problems sa puso natin, which is the leading cause of death here as well as around the world. Dr. Carol, pag-usapan natin yon. How can all of these chronic diseases really eventually affect yung cardiovascular system ng isang tao kapag hindi ito naagapan, hindi ito hininto?
Now, if diet will not play a big role in terms of its control, all of these diseases can really progress and have the complications that we don't want to have our patients to have. We always advise our patients that even if we have a lot of medicines in the market, these medicines will not work if we don't have diet and exercises together with the management of their chronic diseases.
Is there a time where pwedeng sabihin, wala na, this is too late, masyado na ako matagal with this chronic disease to see any improvement?
There's no limit to the time. Even at any stage of the disease, you can still incorporate diet. Now, if, for example, you are on the stage that you are already on the malnourished side because of the complications, diet would still play a role, and it would be on another spectrum where you're going now to improve and give healthy choices so that you can further reduce the chances of paglala of the complications.
And the most important behavioral factor that can lead to a cardiovascular disease, apart from tobacco use and physical inactivity, is your diet. Now, Bea, what is the connection between a healthy heart as well as eating well? Please explain that to us.
It depends on the nutrition na nakukuha sa diet. So it would be best if a person who already has heart problems would be eating foods that are high in fiber, low-fat products, lean meat, and focusing more on eating a balanced diet that consists of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So para ma-maintain yung heart health ng katawan.
What should we incorporate into our diet, and give us some tips in order to make this an easier endeavor or an easier journey for a lot of our viewers?
There will be 4 types of food that will make us be very high risk to develop these chronic diseases. Those will be high processed carbohydrates, sugar sweetened beverages. We have saturated and trans fat and the red and processed meat. So I guess if we're going to take this all in moderation, and we can actually prevent ourselves from having these chronic diseases. So limit lang. It's more of the limitation and fighting it off also with exercises.
If you talk about moderation, is it better to cut it completely, or is taking it in moderation like a treat, parang consuelo na lang, but is it better to cut that completely from your diet?
Now, the plate method, we can actually introduce this plate method. So why am I saying that we can have this type of food in moderation? Because in the plate method, you're going to divide your plate into half of it will be in the vegetables, half of the plate will be divided into complex carbohydrate and the fat.
Now, just as high blood pressure and diabetes can lead to cardiovascular diseases, it can also put you at risk of kidney disease. It's the 7th leading cause of death here in the Philippines. Dr. Carol, Pag-usapan naman natin ngayon ang kidneys natin. What is happening kapag someone has a chronic kidney disease?
We've noted that there's an increased risk or increased rise of chronic kidney diseases due to diabetes. And primarily it's because not just due to the uncontrolled hyperglycemia, but also because of too much salt intake of our patients. So I am more introducing that with the high salt intake, our patients can have an elevation of their blood pressure. Now, together with an uncontrolled glucose or uncontrolled sugar, that will be very, very hard for the kidneys to manage. Hence, they can really develop into chronic kidney disease.
Salt is also one of the main ingredients in food that gives it taste, that makes it enjoyable for people. So my question for you is it possible to put salt at a very minimum or even take away salt altogether but still enjoy food?
Yes, it is still possible. So usually I recommend that my patients would focus more on herbs and spices when it comes to flavoring their food. It's still possible to cook local dishes like adobo, salpicao, and tapa by using herbs and spices to improve the flavor and still retain the quality ng lasa ng pagkain.
Are a lot of these chronic diseases we see nowadays, could this be traced back to the patient's childhood? How food was introduced to them? What was seen as normal for them?
One of the primary root problems here in our country is the increasing trend of overweight and obesity among children. Now, what brought this out? Could this is second sedentary lifestyle of the kids, plus the food that their palate are got so used to. Sobrang flavorful, but it's more of the flavor of the salt that they are so used to, more to the flavor of the sugar or sweet that they are used to. That's why they may increase their weight, and together with a sedentary or no activity, then they will have overweight, obesity, and that's it. That's the risk. And then they'll have the early chronic diseases, even at the young age.
So at an early age, teach your kids how to eat properly and they'll reap the benefits years on end. Coming up, we'll talk about the best diet for people living with cancer. Your health is our mission here on Medtalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and this is Medtalk Health Talk. Here on the show, we always stress the importance of a healthy diet in protecting your health. It's key in managing diseases that can affect our quality of life, including cancer. Now, Dr. Carol, let's talk about cancer and that of diet. Not necessarily, we're not talking about causality here, but those diagnosed with cancer, how important is a proper diet for someone living with cancer?
We don't want our patients to develop malnutrition, especially during treatment. If they are malnourished, then they'll not be able to have energy to fight off together with the chemotherapeutic drugs and together with the medications that we also give for our cancer patients. So of course, just the same, we also highlight the fact that they should not be malnourished. We nourish them with high fiber, we nourish them with healthy diet.
Could you give some concrete examples ng mga foods na high in fiber?
Fruits, okay, so for this one kasi kailangan maingat yung sa food preparation and dapat malinis talaga kasi sensitive din yung patient and we have to focus din dun sa immune system ng patient. So may importante din yung sa food preparation and sa cleanliness. Pero for that, yung mga basic na pagkain ng Pinoy like yung mga pinakpit, chop suey, pwede natin siyang iserve for them.
Now, Bea, in terms of maximizing the nutritive content or the nutritive benefits of these foods, what do you suggest when it comes to preparing them? When it comes to cooking, when it comes to adding heat to certain foods, are we robbing the certain nutrients of this? Kapag ang fruit ginawang juice, natatanggal ba ang fiber na benefit dito ng mga fruits?
For the cooking part, yes, maganda din na nabanggit yung sensitivity to heat. So maganda kasi kung na-retain pa din yung freshness ng vegetable, hindi yun talagang lantang-lanta. It's not too soft. So it would be best if there is still a crunch when it comes to cooking the vegetable as parang indicator na hindi na overcook yung vegetable and hindi nawala yung mga certain nutrients na kailangan ma-retain. And when it comes to fruits, yes, it would be best if the fruit is eaten as a whole fruit. But if the patient also prefers juiced or mga pureed na fruit, it would also be good kasi for patients with cancer, they are a bit sensitive to taste and they may lack appetite. So it would be best if we could take into consideration their food preferences when preparing their food.
Now, Dr. Carol, nowadays, marami talagang diet trends ang nakikita everywhere. The paleo diet, the ketogenic diet, the vegan diet even. And now, all of these diets, in your opinion, what should be the basic mindset of someone who wants to adopt a certain diet to maximize health benefits?
The type of diet that has been recognized by the American Diabetes Association, by the American Heart Association would still be the Mediterranean diet. And this would be an increased intake of vegetables, moderation of fruits, and of course, less or almost none of the saturated fat, of course, the lessening of the processed food, and of course, the red meat.
When it comes to these chronic diseases that we mentioned here, is there a common factor amongst all of them that the viewers should be aware of? In particular here, is it the high salt content of certain foods that are detrimental to those with chronic diseases like this? Is it the high fat cholesterol?
That would be the highly processed carbohydrate and of course the high salt intake. So if we will be able to lower this down and then together with exercise, then we can have longer life, healthy lifestyle.
Now, Bea, before we go, do you have any tips for our viewers about maintaining a healthy diet intake?
It's okay to eat certain types of food as long as you eat it in moderation. Variety, so as much as possible, variety of fruits and vegetables. If you could eat the rainbow, a different color of fruits and vegetables, that would be best. And of course, balance when it comes to diet, 80% diet and 20% exercise to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
And of course, Dr. Carol, before we go, any important tips for our viewers?
For us endocrinologists, we teach our patient to follow the Pinggang Pinoy. And because the Pinggang Pinoy can guide us what the real foods that we should be seeing among our plates.
With that, thank you very much, Ms. Bea Mariola Recuerdo and Dr. Caroline Narvacan Montano for being with us here today and sharing your expertise. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we'll see you again next time here on Medtalk Health Talk.